Hey everybody, Hidden Object Guru here with a GameCast review of Fictorum, the game about wizards blowing up houses until something good happens. Fictorum is the story of a nefarious inquisition that, in the hopes of controlling all the world's magic, has wiped out all but one member of the most powerful order of sorcerers in the world, the Fictorum. It's that all but one that gets them into trouble, of course, as the player takes on the role of that Fictorum and goes on a vengeance rampage. A vampage? Venge page? Well, whatever you call it, there's a lot of violence. Because of a largely unexplained cataclysm, the world is covered in a purple fog that intermittently spits out glowing demons. As a result, humanity has moved to the mountaintops. The game's story structure is lifted shamelessly from FTL, with the player choosing which mountaintop to travel to from a map, trying to build a path to the map's exit while staying one step ahead of the Inquisition forces that are always hot on their heels. The mountaintops feature randomized encounters drawn from a decent-sized pool, where the player is given options for how to proceed. Do they want to intervene and have a fight, or just sneak past an area? Would they like to blast a town of magic-hating zealots to matchsticks, or leave them alone? There are a few opportunities to choose the right or wrong thing to do in a given situation. There's no morality meter keeping track of the player's decision, so they're free to behave however they see fit. The end goal is to arrive at the Inquisition's stronghold on Map 8 and kill the head Inquisitor, and the game never really builds its story beyond the Inquisition has got to go, so get that done. Fictorum is a third-person spellcasting game with two main points of interest in it. The first is a modular spellcasting system. So long as their mana pool has enough force in it, players can always just toss off a spell with the right trigger on their controller. If they have a little extra mana though, they can use the left trigger to slow down time and open up a window that lets them activate runes that buff the spell in various ways, making it fly faster, farther, hit harder, last longer, or leave a damaging field in its wake. There's a wide variety of power runes for each of the game's three magic disciplines, and the game manages to make changes to spells so immediate and impactful that using the spell shaping system always feels rewarding. The way that impactfulness happens is the second interesting thing about the game: the dynamically deformable buildings. Nearly all of Fictorum's maps are packed with pre-built kit houses that are prone to being blown apart by the slightest impact from almost any spell. Their pieces fly off in all directions, crushing enemies, or even the player if they're not careful. The game is entirely built around the inclusion of this effect, and it's a damn fine effect to build a game around. There's some pretty prominent weak points as well. Enemy AI doesn't really progress past ranged attackers park at their maximum range and constantly fire, while melee guys charge forward so blindly that they will literally run to their doom off of a broken bridge that the player is on the other side of. So that's a disappointment. More disappointing is the game's loot system. While players can occasionally luck into a decent reward by killing an enemy, most of the best loot, armor, health, spellbooks, can be found by exploring the aforementioned houses, which is where a pretty severe problem crops up. The Fictorum has no melee attacks, and no spells that won't destroy buildings. The enemy attackers have no problem following the player into buildings, sword swinging. Once that happens, players have to choose between letting the enemy AI hack away, definitely killing them, or casting a spell that brings the roof down on all of their heads, which will just almost definitely kill them. So the only reliable way to get decent loot, which is an absolute necessity for beating late game levels, is to carefully kill all of the enemies on a map without damaging any of the buildings, and then carefully go back and search those houses one at a time, which is basically the opposite of the way the game is meant to be played. Clearly an indie production, all of Fictorum's levels take place on procedurally generated mountaintops full of rounded edges. That, along with the simple character models, gives the game a kind of a Mountain Blade but with spells feel. The spells themselves are much more impressive, using great visual effects and sound design to make sure each is distinctly memorable, whether crackling lightning, exploding fire, or shattering ice. All of the spells have beautifully dynamic visual characteristics. Sadly, the game isn't particularly well optimized, and the physics interactions it's built around can be too much for the engine. In even the most hectic combat, I had no trouble maintaining 60 frames per second, but whenever I start blowing up buildings, the game's attempt to keep track of all of the objects in motion can drop that frame rate down to 30 or even 15. It's still visually stunning, but it doesn't offer the smoothness that the rest of the game does. This is a new character I've just started. He has the ability to call meteors down from the sky, creating huge explosions. For whatever's wrong with this game, it gives players an unlimited pool of magic that they can use to destroy squads of enemies and crush buildings. It's honestly so viscerally entertaining that I'm tempted to give all of the game's flaws a pass. Fictorum contains any number of stellar moments. It's difficult not to smile when watching a ball of plasma disintegrate a watchtower along with the archer inside of it. It makes using destructive magic both simple and fun. It's all of the mechanics around the combat that get the game into trouble, though. With a better loot mechanic, a revamped story mode with more encounters and a larger number of maps, and a handle on its technical shortcomings, this could have been a masterpiece of magical combat. As it is, there's enough here to be worth playing, but probably only if you find it on sale. I've been the Hidden Object Guru. Thanks for watching. You can stay tuned for more GameCast content, or drop by the Hidden Object Guru YouTube channel for literally hundreds of other videos. See you back here for the next thing. But until then, au revoir.